Someone ignored you today, maybe weeks ago, maybe years. And yet here you are, still running the scene back in your head, still drafting the response you never sent, still trying to figure out what you did wrong, or what they meant, or whether any of it was real. The weird part is that you remember the person who ignored you better than most people who were actually kind to you. The people who showed up for you, blurrier, less vivid, already fading. Around 50,000 years ago, your ancestors lived in groups of about 150 people. They knew the same faces their whole lives. Those faces were everything. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar noticed in the early 1990s that human social groups across cultures tend to cap out around 150. He tied this to the size of the human neocortex. Your brain can only actively track that many relationships at once. If you got expelled from the group, you died. Not metaphorically, actually died. Exposure, predators, starvation, alone in the Pleistocene was a death sentence. So your brain developed an early warning system. Pay extreme attention to any sign that your standing in the group was slipping. Being ignored was one of those signs. In 2003, neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger ran a study at UCLA. She put people in an fMRI scanner and had them play a simple ball-tossing game with what they thought were two other players. Partway through, the other players stopped throwing the ball to the subject, just left them out. And the brain scans showed something no one expected. The scans showed activation in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes physical pain. Being left out did not just feel bad, it registered as pain. The same circuitry, the same signal. Your brain does not distinguish cleanly between a broken arm and social rejection. Both read as damage. The situation has changed, but the hardware has not. This is why you cannot just let it go. When something hurts, your brain does something counterintuitive. It fixates, not because it enjoys suffering, because it is trying to learn. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, named after Lithuanian psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who noticed in 1927 that waiters remembered incomplete orders far better than completed ones. The brain flags unfinished business. It keeps the file open. The person who ignored you is an open file. You did not get a clear ending. You did not get an explanation. So your brain keeps returning to it, turning it over, looking for the pattern it missed. This is not a flaw. It is exactly what the system was built to do. But the problem is that the system cannot tell the difference between a predator tracking you through tall grass and someone leaving your text on read. The threat detection protocol runs on both. Once it starts running, it pulls in everything. You start cataloging other moments, other silences. You build a case. Your brain under social pain is not operating at full capacity. The thoughts you have about the person who ignored you are often not your clearest thoughts. They are the thoughts of a system in partial emergency mode. That explains the loop, the replaying. Social psychologist Roy Baumeister spent years studying what he called the need to belong. In a 2005 paper, he and his colleagues found that social exclusion impairs cognitive function. People who had just been excluded performed measurably worse on logic tests. They made worse decisions. Their ability to regulate emotion dropped. Your brain under social pain is running below full capacity. So the more you try to think your way through the loop, the harder it gets. That explains something else too. The way you suddenly think of the perfect thing you should have said 3 days later in the shower. Your brain was not finished processing. It never got the signal to stop. A 2009 study by Geraldine Downey at Columbia University found that people with high rejection sensitivity actually become more attuned to social cues after rejection, scanning their environment harder for signs of approval or disapproval. The brain doubles down on the thing it is afraid of. Now, here is something most people miss. The person who ignored you may not have thought about it at all. They sent no message. There was no dramatic internal conflict on their end. The asymmetry is real. You are carrying something that they do not even know they handed you. This is not their fault, necessarily. But it does tell you something about where the weight actually lives. It lives in you. Not because you are weak, because your brain gave them that power automatically. Psychologist Mark Leary developed something he called sociometer theory in the 1990s. The basic idea is that self-esteem is not really about how good you feel about yourself in the abstract. It is a gauge. It tracks your perceived social inclusion in real time. When someone includes you, the needle goes up. When someone excludes you, the needle drops. The person who ignored you moved your needle. Not because they are powerful, because your brain gave them that power automatically. The sociometer does not ask permission. What Leary also found is that the people most affected by this are often the ones who were already scanning, who had already been knocked around enough that the meter was running sensitive. A pattern of early rejection, even subtle rejection, makes the antenna sharper, more reactive. So the question is not just why you cannot stop thinking about this person. The question underneath it is, when did your brain learn that exclusion was something to fear this much? That is usually a longer answer. System default is to ruminate, to rehearse, to draft the message, to check whether they watched your story, to look for clues. None of that closes the file. In fact, it often keeps it open longer. The brain is trying to finish the sentence, but checking for external signals does not give the internal system what it needs. Resolution does not come from watching their next move. What closes open files, according to research that followed Zeigarnik's own work, is resolution in the internal world. Naming the loop, saying out loud or on paper what you actually wanted from that person, what the situation meant to you, why the silence stings the specific way it does. You can finish the sentence yourself. That person who ignored you, they are still in your head right now, but now you know why, and that changes what you do with them.